Hello, and welcome to the Raising Sage Spiritual Podcast, where we delve into the transformative power of spirituality and personal growth. I'm your host, Jess, and today my guest is Rachel Roberts, and her handle is Wolf Woman Rising Official. How are you today?
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you for joining me and for finding me. Connecting. So for anyone who's not familiar with your work, I mean, I've done a little bit of research, but I'm excited to hear more as well. Maybe we can just start with like your background, a brief bio, yeah, your areas of expertise, whatever you feel called to share.
Of course, thank you. Official blurb. Yeah, so I'm Rachel Roberts. My school, my online school, Wisdom School, is Wolf Woman Rising. As part of that, I'm an internationally best-selling author of books that are based around goddess mythology, symbology, connecting to the earth's wisdom and to wolf wisdom. And as well as that, I'm a flower essence coach, a sacred dance teacher. So I like flowers, dance, and ancient history.
Yeah.
As well as that, I'm from North Wales as well, in the UK. So I live in the mountains and the hills and the seas and the forests, and that, yeah,
Beautiful.
kind of is very much part of who I am. So probably very similar to where you are, actually.
Yeah, yeah, I was just gonna say it sounds like the essence of Newfoundland as well. Yeah, beautiful. So what is a flower essence? So you're a best-selling, you have two books, I know. Do you have a mystery school too? Is that
Yeah, well, I call it a wisdom school because
wisdom
I think
school?
that nothing's a mystery. We know it. We just need to remember
Yeah,
it.
so true. I love that. Very true. Um, Yeah, flower essence, just like that caught my attention.
Yeah,
What does that
I
mean?
love that behind you. It's beautiful. Yeah, reminds me of sunflowers. So yeah, flower essences. Well, the essence is a word used for like soul. So kind of in my research and kind of my expertise is on the pantheon of the Romans, the Roman deities. And in the ancient times, they used to give them the name Numen, which is kind of like a spirit or guardian of a thing. And it could be anything. Like they had gods for like the doorknobs, the door hinge, the door
Yeah.
frame. So it's that kind of same thing. It's the belief that every single flower has its own spirit. So you're connecting to the soul of the plant. So in like herbal medicine, you'd connect to kind of like the biology, the chemical composition of the plant, and it would affect your chemistry. With flower essences, it's the soul of the plant. So you're working soul to soul, which can help you physically, but also works emotionally and spiritually as well.
Wow, that's so interesting. Feel very connected to flowers for sure. So I guess maybe to the beginning, maybe like how did your spirituality journey begin? How did you start, you know, learning about all these things and go down this path? And have there been any like significant events or experiences you feel called to share?
Yeah, gosh, where to start? So I think like I think we're when you're in a landscape like I am, and probably like you are with the mountains around you and the forest, you kind of almost there's a natural connection there to nature as being sacred, as being kind of your retreat, your go-to. So I think living here in Wales, being born in Wales, has had a huge impact into my spiritual life. From very, very young, I was aware of my lineage, here in Wales, going back to the Druids. And my tide was a bard, he was a poet and artist. So that lineage has kind of like set me up for it. But then growing up with my parents, they very strict Christians. So I was kind of shown a different path,
Mhm.
um, which challenged me in many ways because I felt it a bit too constricting, not the full story, because I felt very much the feminine was lacking there, and I didn't know how to relate to kind of all this maleness.
Yeah.
um, so I was searching I think for this divine female part. And then I've always loved history, like being obsessed with history. I did my degree, my master's in history. And throughout all of that, I could see all these kind of these stories from the past of these people from the past, and their connection to what they were calling the goddess. And I got a little bit intrigued, I suppose. I was like, this is female part here that they had in the old times that I feel is lacking now. So that began my search for something that I could relate to. And my first experiences were of the Welsh goddesses here in Wales, and then also, the Roman deities, because they got everywhere, like the Roman Empire stretched even here in Wales. So we have Roman stuff here. So I was experiencing and seeing depictions of divine feminine. And that's where I found it. And then it was just deepened by doing dance. Like, I found this external goddess in myself through dance
Mm.
practice. I was realizing that this wasn't just an image that I could see or a thing that was completely separate to me. I realized that my body was divine as well, and I could refine that divinity through dance movement. And then the layers just added throughout the years through flower essences, and then through teaching, and then going deep into mythology and writing books. It just all kind of just fit into piece, like it does. All these jigsaw pieces come in bit by
Yeah.
bit.
Wow, beautiful. Tell me more, or tell us more about your books.
So I have two out and two coming out, and more in my
Mm.
mind.
Nice.
um, so the first one is called Lipa, She Wolf of Rome, Mother of Destiny. And Lupa, the goddess, is one of my primary guides. She is the she wolf, the kind of matriarch of the wolf lineage, I suppose. And I connected to her very deeply through a very specific time in my life where I was in a dark night of the soul, and she came forward as a guide for me to awaken what I call my inner wolf. So my first book is about her and her story, her connection to ancient Rome, how the ancient Romans experienced her, and then I retell her story from her perspective, because of course her story was originally told by men.
Mm.
um, and then I give like tips and tools to connect to her. The second book, Wolf, goes into wolf wisdom in general. So what do wolves offer as an example and inspiration? And then I share more about wolf deities, gods and goddesses, the archetypes of wolf that we can use to and connect to. I share again a story this time about the Norse god Fenrir, who I was very drawn to because he's the bad guy of Norse mythology, and I love the bad guys. But I was like, why is he being deemed like really bad?
Mhm.
So I wanted to explore, what are the nuances in that? What's actually the truth in that? And then share more tips to kind of, embody wolf yourself. The third book, Pantheon the Romans, goes deeper into the whole Roman pantheon. So how did the ancient Romans experience religion? What did it mean to them as priestesses, as women, as children, as adults? And then I share more about the gods and goddesses of that pantheon. And then the other book coming out is about Flora, the Roman goddess of flowers, who has been my guide and guardian in working with flower essences, because really, essentially, all flowers are her children.
That's beautiful. I had a great grandmother named Flora that just
Oh,
brought to
wow.
mind. Yeah,
Beautiful.
I love that. That's so interesting. Let me see. So I guess maybe in the work you do, how would you describe how you use like your spiritual kind of gifts and talents? Which I think we all, kind of have, but everyone sort of uses them in a way that's unique to them. But yeah, just tell us more about what you kind of do. What do you have different sessions and things as well, or?
Yeah. So, like for me, I feel like my spirituality is really a tool, can I as a way to teach. Like I feel like some people call it dharma or blueprint. I really feel like mine is very much to be a facilitator, a teacher in this lifetime. So my spirituality is very much kind of been about my lessons, how I've changed kind of the knowledge experience from those lessons into wisdom, and then I then share that wisdom to inspire others. And that's the way that my spirituality has been almost like being of service.
Yeah.
And of course, it's different for everybody. Some people, the experience is for them alone, something they've got to learn in this lifetime. And then
Mhm.
others, it's, for them to share those gems of wisdom. And for me, it's been about the sharing. And I've learned through, three different ways. Primarily, it has been history, dance, and nature, specifically flower essences. So they're kind of the ways that I facilitate uniquely, is through those three
Mhm.
mediums. Because that's what's worked for me, that's kind of what I know. There's various ways you can combine them. So like, dancing specific themes of a historical goddess, or dancing with a flower essence, or kind of just combining them in that way. So that's kind of the route I tend to take. But yeah, very much like my spirituality, everything I kind of have experienced or learned or feel tends to be as a route or a catalyst for me being of service in
Mhm.
somehow to the world.
Yeah,
Um, there's not very much I kind of like kept for myself. It's like, nope, this is something that you need to tell, you need to share. But
absolutely.
it does look different when I'm doing my own stuff, to the stuff that I'm practicing. So like, um, you know, some things like when I'm on my own, I quite like to be really quiet. I like to like the silence. I like the still meditation. But then when I'm teaching, and I'm facilitating, it's more about the movement. So there is kind of a difference there. Like I feel
Mhm.
very much like my personal life is like as a witch, and then my professional life is like as a priestess. And I feel they're
Mhm.
very much different things to me,
Yeah.
different ways of doing it, approaching it.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely different layers, and we're all multidimensional, so.
Yeah.
Um, what kind of maybe mindfulness or spiritual practices like do you engage in regularly? This kind of flows in nicely from what you're talking about. Do you have any specific rituals or routines that are important to you?
Tell you what, my most kind of important thing that I do that I find has benefited me the most is not big ceremonies or big rituals or anything like that. Nothing fancy or complicated, but actually finding the simplicity in things, actually
Mhm.
integrating spirituality into my everyday. So
Yeah.
everyday things that I do. So even when like I'm making up a cup of tea, I'm saying thank you to the herbs that are in my herbal tea. Or when I open my curtains in the morning, I'm saying thank you and just to the sunshine, and just letting the sunshine be on me for a few moments. So that's the kind of I like that simple approach, because I think often we can feel the pressure that we have to do something that is a performance, or almost like there's an addiction, I think, towards kind of like we need to have a big experience, or there needs to be something
Yeah.
monumental that happens, and we're kind of like we're searching for that big pivot or something, a
Yeah.
drastic thing. I think that it's in the everyday moments, it's in that simplicity. It's
Mhm.
noticing, you're walking down the pavement and you notice a flower in the crack of the cement, and at that moment you realize and you see beauty and you see love, the love of nature, that
Yeah.
she's offering you that beauty and all of that harshness. And
Yeah.
it's that simplicity that, yeah, that I find my spirituality in. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I definitely agree. Definitely relate to that. Let me see. What would you say maybe is the biggest challenge you've faced on
Oh
your,
gosh,
yeah.
i think I think like this imposter syndrome, but it's more of a fearing other people's judgments. And this has been very much why I think I've related to the wolf.
Mm,
Because the wolf is, in most folklore and still in many people's minds, is a predator. The bad guy, the one that's going to destroy or hurt you, is in the dark of the woods. Um, and that's been important for me, because I think about all of the things that I've been told I am, and sometimes those projections on us can actually make us who we are, because we choose to believe them or to enact them. We have to be loyal
yeah.
to those expectations. So my biggest challenge has been the judgments of other people, because like what I'm doing is quite contrary to my upbringing and the opinions. I can see the cat now.
Yeah.
Yay. So like that's been my biggest difficulty, is the judgment. But then I remember with the wolf that it reminds me that everything is a paradox. We are the light and the dark, we are the inner and the outer. And those kind of like those judgments and those conditions, I see them as like pieces of clothing that we put on all the time. Every time somebody says you should do this or you are this, you put on a piece of clothing. And then the challenge is then to then take these pieces of clothing off, to recognize what's not yours, to take them off until we come back to the wild, untamed part of us, the kind of the wolf us, I suppose, it's in the dark of the woods, going in, meeting that part of ourselves and just saying that, I'm not those judgments, I'm not those conditions, but you are going to face judgment wherever you go. And that's, probably the more you expose yourself, the more that you are open, that you are honest, that you are speaking, that, the more you're being authentic, the more you're going to come against that judgment.
Hmm.
It's a constant, from ourselves and from other people.
Yeah.
But it's just, yeah, it's just about kind of being brave, being courageous. Like that's been my kind of my power move in this life, is courage.
Hmm.
To say no, this isn't mine. I don't choose this anymore, even if it means I have to move away from people, that I have to, be different to family members. You have to kind of make that choice.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. Um, I was gonna say something, I can't remember. I lost it. Just that I resonated, but I had something, but it's gone now. The cat distracted me, that's what I'll say.
They are very distracting in
Yeah,
the best ways.
yeah. So obviously you teach and share your, knowledge with others. You have a wisdom school. Um, you can tell us more about that, and then also maybe if you have any methods you use to kind of make spirituality more accessible and kind of understandable, you could give us your take on that as well.
Yeah, of course. So kind of the main kind of beginner ways that I offer for people that I find works. So I have my books and then the meditation. So it depends on which you prefer, because I know that some people like a visual, which the books would, reading would be useful. So you're reading the mythology. So my books, I kind of like offer what the ancients thought, the mythology that they created, that they downloaded, the symbology, the codes that they had. And then, I retell through stories as well. So, the story from that perspective. So you can actually hear the voice of the goddess. So, I mean, I found like, reading the ancient texts, like reading the thoughts of those in the past, kind of gives me inspiration and example. That's one of the things I love about history, is that there's millions of people that have walked through this life, experienced this life, and there'll be somebody that has experienced something similar to you. So the
Yeah.
past has given you millions of options of pathways, of things not to do and things to do,
Hmm.
that inspirational other. So like history is kind of like, what I primarily kind of a sharing, like kind of like here's like a buffet of all the different things that's been done or thought or said, and you just kind of choose from that, the ones that resonate, uh, you know, with you, because there'll be things that do and things that don't, and only you can
Hmm.
decide that. But there's lots of examples and inspiration there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that. And then I forgot what the question was now. I always get
Like
sidetracked by history.
yeah. The accessibility of spirituality and whatnot, but like I think yeah, you were hitting it, like storytelling and yeah. Um and I remembered what I was gonna say. It was about the fear of being seen or the fear of being judged, that like I really have found too the only way to get through it is to just keep just keep going. And that's the only thing that makes it a little bit easier, like over time, I find.
Yeah, I mean, like one of my favorite quotes that's been with me, like my whole life that is keeps me going. It's one of the Roosevelts that said it, but it's courage is not the absence of fear, but the belief that there is something more important than that fear. So
Hmm.
it's, it's you do it anyway. It's kind of
Yeah.
almost this, you just keep on going. That's all you can do, and because I like feel sometimes that perhaps I'm not a very confident person, but I have conviction,
Mm.
even when I feel like, oh, I don't know, I'm like, I'm going to show up anyway,
Yeah.
because it's about devotion. It's about showing up for yourself and, you know, for your spiritual self and your spirituality. It half the time it might be a mess, but so what? It's the fact that you showed up. It's the
Yeah.
intention, it's it's not about how big a thing you do, like
Yeah.
I always remember, one of the gems that actually came to me from growing up younger as a Christian was Jesus about saying, how it's easier, for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven, because the guy was making this big show of like all these the gold that he was bringing. And yet the woman, who bought something small and simple, actually for her, it was just she showed up. It was her intention. She showed up with love, rather than kind of like trying to do something big and huge, like I said before
Yeah.
about the simplicity of things.
Yeah.
It's just being there. It's just turning up. Yeah, that's what
Mhm.
matters.
Yeah. Beautiful. Um, what advice maybe would you give someone who's like just starting out on their spiritual journey or reconnecting or yeah.
Meow. Get a
Just
cat.
feeling, yeah. Say hello.
Gosh, yeah. So, oh,
It's Artemis, speaking of goddesses.
oh gosh, yes. So I think authenticity is really important. I mean, look around you and do look what other people are doing. Maybe try with a few teachers and see what resonates, but don't feel that you're obliged to anything. You have
Mhm.
to do what fulfills you and find your own authentic way of doing it. Like you may be full force, that you have to do, like I said, a still meditation. Maybe that works for you.
Mhm.
If it doesn't, then go and walk, make a pilgrimage and meditate while you're walking or while you're dancing or while you're doing the washing up,
Yeah.
and then have a look at all the different gods and goddesses. Maybe there's one that resonates for you. Just find that authenticity. Don't feel pressured into you have to do something a certain way. There'll be many people that will tell you this is the way you should be doing it. This is the truth, absolutely the truth. That's
Mhm.
just their opinion. That's the way that they've related to it. It's the pathway they found. And like I said, there's millions of examples of pathways that can inspire you. But they're really about witnessing them so that you can find out what resonates and what works for you and just stay in your own lane. Like don't
Yeah.
look either side. But you have to
Yeah.
practice. You have to try things out. You have to see what resonates. You can't say no until you've tried it.
Yeah. Absolutely. What maybe what insight or lesson has been most valuable to you, would you say?
Ooh.
You've shared a lot of beautiful insights.
Yeah, I think it's that. I mean, like the three kind of pillars of my school, like a trust, authenticity, and courage, because they're the three things that I have come back to again and again and again. And
Mhm.
they talk about like our spiritual healing journey as being a spiral. You come back to the same place, and I found that those three things I come back to again and again and again. It's like, okay, I'm working on my authenticity. I found I've taken off, like I said, a piece of clothing that didn't belong to me, and then you kind of settle into that new way of being, and then another layer will come up and you'll work through that. And but those three pillars, they're the pillars of my school, because they have been the things that have kind of the pillars that have held up the temple, of my spirituality. So the courage, like I said, to be you, to fiercely claim you, to reclaim you, to share you, the courage to be authentic, and then trusting your authenticity,
Yeah.
trusting that, the divine, trusting life, trusting yourself, that
Yeah.
it's okay, that it's safe, and that you are capable.
Yeah.
So they're the three that I always come back to, and yeah, I find that they just hold everything else up.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I definitely agree. Any other topics or thoughts or any messages you feel called to share before we wrap up and let everyone know how they can kind of connect with you and learn more about your work?
Oh, I think we've covered loads of really
Yeah,
good stuff, haven't we?
definitely. Definitely. Thank you so much for all the sharing and how open you've been. It's a beautiful chat. I feel like a lot of people will resonate with a lot of the stuff we talked about. So thank you so much. So yeah, for anyone who's interested in learning more and want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that? Is it through Instagram or?
Yeah, so I'm in a few different places. The good place to start is my website, so wolfwomanrising.com. And from there, I've got info about my books, but also stuff on there like the stories from my books I've recorded, so you can hear them, and you can enjoy them there. And that's a good place to, everything's all in one place then. And then if you're really into the meditation and the flower essences, on my YouTube channel, I have, over like 80 videos of how to connect to Goddess. And then I have loads of free meditations on there as well, beginner meditations, longer meditations, some flower
Awesome.
wisdom. And then Instagram is kind of the place that, if you want me kind of behind the scenes, like, oh, here's me walking down the street. A good place to stalk. But yeah, so I would start with the website, and then I think that the books are always a good starting point. And then from that I have options, to do extra, depth with the things that are mentioned in those books, like Meditations of Lupa to find out more about her, and then Meditations with the Wolves as well.
Cool. Awesome. I definitely I'm gonna check that out for sure. Thank you so much again for joining me, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Till next time.